Hello and welcome along to a very special edition of the Westminster Roundup. I'm pleased once again to be joined by the Parliamentary and Policy Officer for the Alliance, Ryan McCulloch, and this time he comes mob-handed with the policy team. We have his colleagues Max Nichols, our Policy Officer, and Lee Thompson, Head of Policy here at the Alliance. We're all joining you today to discuss the new COVID-19 support section, which is now live on the Alliance website, and we know that there was a lot of information in there. So to dissect some of these bigger issues with you, we've invited the policy team to come and talk to us about how we are helping to support our members for the long run. So I'd like to invite Max to join us first, and he is going to talk through the business rates and grant support that we've put online. And Max, what can our members benefit from this section?
Yes, thanks, Alex. Nice to be here with you and Ryan this week as part of the wider team. So just going to talk a little bit about the business rates support and the grants associated with that, because we know it's quite a big thing for the sector, given that it includes now all businesses within the retail, leisure and hospitality sectors. So firstly, just on the business rates holiday, that's a 100% business rates holiday for all businesses within that sector, regardless of their rateable value. So for this financial year, that will be applied automatically, so businesses don't need to do that. That'll be reflected in their business rates bill. And I'm just going to talk quickly about the grants associated with that. So there's the retail, leisure and hospitality grant, which is split into kind of two sections depending on the rateable value. So a smaller one for those with a rateable value under £15,000, and another grant of up to £25,000 for £25,000 for those with a rateable value between 15 and 50 or under 51,000. I guess what's key for us now is moving into the implementation stage. So that's now with local authorities to implement that, and they're beginning that process. And we know they've begun to make those payments to businesses. I think what's really key for members and their clubs, especially who are going to benefit from these grants, is just to be really aware how that's going to be delivered in your local area, because we know there's already slightly inconsistencies between local authorities. So what I think is key is for those who think they're eligible for this grant to just things such as, we know letters are going out to rateable premises, and obviously at this time you may not have people in those premises. So if it's safe to do so, then we recommend going to the premises checking post, because there may be a form that needs to be done to claim that grant. And if it's not safe to do so, then making contact with your local authority. I think that's key in this, is just from our point of view, that we may be able to help you is understanding how this is being delivered across the country. And we can hopefully help to make sure there's a consistent approach, and those who are eligible for these grants, and they are grants and it's great to see, but we want to make sure that those who are eligible can claim those. And just as another example of where we've been working with our members, so we've been in contact with Skateboarding England this week, who've had a particular issue around skate parks, and they're quite, particularly the indoor ones, being quite large premises, and how those rateable values are calculated can depend on whether they receive the grants. So they've spotted some inconsistencies, as I say. So that's something we're picking up with them, and we can talk to DCMS about that and government about that, just to make sure that those grants are going out to help those who need them, and those who are eligible are able to receive them.
And these grants are vitally important for our members at this time. And not only that, but we know that a lot of our partners need to, almost business as usual, we need to be thinking about what's going to happen post this pandemic. And we have a section of support on our website for that. So Ryan, if I can just bring you in to talk a little more about that and the support we're offering to try and keep business continuity moving.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. So just a couple of points to talk about with the business continuity stuff. And really these are all good examples of where we've been working with members actually and listening to their concerns. And I think the first one, is fair to say, is something that hadn't necessarily crossed our minds straight away until a few members brought it up. And we were quite lucky that the Alliance is on a weekly call with a lot of other kind of sports sector bodies, directly with the Sports Minister and Secretary of State through DCMS. And our CEO, Lisa Wainwright, was able to raise this point. But groundspersonships was really a big issue. So with all sports grounds being closed, I know outdoor sports that need their kind of grounds kept. So we had concerns from Bowls England, from the Croquet Association, and I know golf obviously had the same sort of issue as well, with obviously the need to keep fairways and greens. They wanted to know if they could be considered as essential, or if they could carry on working at a time when the rest of us are obviously doing this and working from home. And DCMS said that where their work couldn't be carried out from home, then organisations were able to have employees, providing they maintain the social distancing arrangements that are in place at the moment, and then they could carry on doing that work. So that was essential one for people who have kind of ground to maintain. They can carry on doing their work as long as they do it safely. So that was a good clarification to get from government. And another couple of points kind of pertaining to the other side of that, if you like. So as I said, what we're doing working at home, we had a couple of points raised about, firstly, about insurance. So early on, kind of as the working from home stuff started to take hold, we had some queries about those members who might be used to delivering, say, classes, for example, in leisure centres or other facilities, who would now be delivering them from home, and whether their insurance would cover them the same. And our corporate partners at Howden were good at putting together some advice on that, and their interpretation was that essentially, yes, you would be covered in the same way as long as you carry out a class using the same kind of methods and same processes and procedures as you would if you were carrying it out in a venue. So that could include participation questionnaires afterwards, for example. And finally, there is a particular issue around those who are delivering sessions from home, again, who might otherwise be delivering them in venues, usually where music is involved and the licensing of music. So normally, there are two types of licenses you can get without going into too much of the detail, but one of them in particular licenses the venue to play music in the same way that a pub or a bar would be licensed to play music as a venue, and therefore any lessons that take place playing music in there are covered by that. But obviously that can't be done at home. So we're still in the middle of kind of exploring that issue now about how lessons that are delivered to be uploaded online can use recording artists' music. We're still trying to find out some information about that, but we'll have some more detail hopefully in the near future, and that is something that's come out of a discussion, particularly with our movement and dance division, but I know it'll affect others because there are obviously people who like to home work out to music and their classes are set to music. So I'd watch this space for a bit more information on that.
So as Max and Ryan have both pointed out, we are in constant conversation, not only with our members, but with DCMS and other sector stakeholders, one of which was a conversation around support we could provide for the near 100,000 self-employed individuals that work in our sector. And we saw some success in that over the last couple of weeks. But I'd like to bring in Lee Thompson just to touch upon what are the discussions we are having at that level.
Yeah, thanks, Alex, and pleasure to be joining you and Ryan and Max today. Yeah, as you pointed out, and I think as Ryan's already mentioned, we're in pretty much weekly contact with ministers and officials in response to the coronavirus and trying to coordinate the sort of sector work that's going on in that response. So in addition to the support for self-employed, as you mentioned, which we've managed to help secure along with a number of other sectors who were facing the same problem, I think a good example of some of the work we're doing working with government and other stakeholders in the sector is around the application of some of the government support schemes to the sector. So we know, for example, that the job retention scheme is a nationwide scheme open to any business of any kind in any sector. But what we're starting to see now is the application of that job retention scheme, some wrinkles in that as it's applied to sport. So specifically, we know that a lot of sports organisations are in receipt of public grants from Sport England and UK Sport, and some of those grants might be in part for staffing of particular programmes or other activity. And at the moment, the government guidance on the scheme and furloughing staff under the scheme indicates that if you are in receipt of public funds and it's being used for staffing and that funding is continuing, and we know that Sport England has provided some security around funding, then you wouldn't be expected to furlough those staff. But I think what we're seeing is that's creating some potential rigidities for some of our members who are obviously under severe financial pressure at the moment. So we're working with both our members and DCMS and officials to see if there's any further flexibility that we can find around in that scheme.
And I would like to reinforce the point that whilst this COVID-19 support section has been created on the Alliance website, we are here to continue to support you. So if you are facing any challenges in accessing any of this support, whether it's financial grants or staff retention schemes, anything like that, please do contact our policy team, and they're available, policy@sportandrecreation.org.uk. And we are constantly updating that section of our website. So as soon as government reveals further details, or we have any other funding pots that you can access, we'll be sure to update these sections, and also to promote those across our social media channels. And again, you can get in touch with us via @SportRecTweets. Well, all that leaves me to say is to thank my guests today. So a big thank you to Ryan, Lee and Max for joining us and hopefully highlighting some of those key issues and key support that we're offering our sector. And we hope to join you at another Westminster Roundup very soon.